but if you guys are ready, I'll introduce it and we'll go from there. How about that?
Yep.
Alrighty. Good evening, Packers fans, and welcome to Absolute Packer Podcast number 42. We don't have a specific name for this yet, but we will have it after we're done recording, I'm sure. There's really nothing to talk about since last time, so we can probably just stop.
We'll call it done.
Yeah, call her done. 2 minutes in, and we can just say we did our thing and then run on the next one.
One thing we have to do a better job of
What's
is introducing us, because of the huge influx of fans that have joined us.
Okay. That's a very good point, though. We should probably start a new thing where we introduce everybody. That's a very good idea. You kind of caught me a little off guard, but keeps us on our toes. So the voice you're hearing now is Andy Hetzel. I am one of three within this operation. The voice you heard before there talking about how we need to introduce, that's Elliot Christensen. And the third person is Jeremy Hautala. Am I saying your last name correct? I hope. Is it Hautala?
No, that was perfect.
Okay. Good stuff. We
are the triangle of authority.
Right here.
Nice. It might be a good idea, if you guys are up for it too, to kind of explain, who does what in terms of their roles within this podcast. We don't talk about that a whole lot. We all help out for sure and do research and stuff like that. But if I could be so bold, I would say, Elliot is kind of I'll call it the IT guy. He helps put together, getting the actual podcast recorded, getting everything together, doing the editing, and he's kind of the guy who takes the audio that we get together and puts it out there. And for that, we thank you, sir. Andy.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. If you want to have anything to add there, feel free. If that's good, we can.
No, actually, everybody likes being called the IT guy. That's our favorite thing.
The it guy. That's a good point. It's like, we'll just label you this. No, all kidding aside, there's a lot of work that goes into this, in many different respects. So getting the podcast out to the masses, the actual audio is very important. We appreciate that. The voice you're hearing now, Andy Hetzel. I am the roast master. No, I guess I would say I'm more of the commentary in general, and I bounce ideas and thoughts off you guys, and I like to think I provide some comic relief here and there. I have been told I can be pretty negative, which I will not deny. Hopefully I can turn that around a little bit and keep things positive. Actually, it's funny. My number one New Year's resolution this year is to be more positive, not just about my Packers, but about just everything in general. Given what's happened to me over the past, 5 or 6 months, I think there's every reason to be positive. So it's in many ways it's kind of a miracle I'm here. So I have a lot to be positive about. And then Jeremy, I would say, you've done a fantastic job, kind of being the X's and O's guy, breaking down film, plays, personnel, and even keeping up to date. He puts together all the notes, and he keeps us informed of trends, league trends, coaching trends, all those kinds of things, and that's yeoman's work there too. So really appreciate that. And as I think about it, it's been far too long to kind of introduce what we all do, specifically each person, to our fan base. So that was a really good idea, Elliot. I appreciate that. With that said, a lot of shit's been happening. Every 10 seconds, I'm looking at my phone and I say, oh, there's another notification going off. Unless you've been living under a rock, the Packers have finally hired a new head coach. His name is Matt LaFleur. He's the 15th coach in Packer history. He came from the Tennessee Titans, He's a young buck. I think he's only 39, so he's my age. I can only imagine if me running the Packers at 39. It's incredible. The league is getting younger and younger with not only players but coaches. So that's obviously the big news. There's other things behind that. He's putting together his staff. Some other coaches have been let go. But that's big news. So with that said, what do you guys think of the hire? And I don't know if you guys saw the press conference, things of that nature. I'd like to talk about that a little bit too. So what do you think?
Yeah, I past weekend, thanks to Andy and Elliot, I've got the NFL Pass, which has been like the best thing since sliced bread.
Is that what that charge on my credit card was from?
Shit. Yeah.
Did you get the all 22?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
I got that for Christmas for my wife, so I thank my wife for that one.
That's almost like the Homer episode where he gets a bowling ball for Marge, for Christmas with his name on it, but he gave it to his wife. So you got that present from your wife, but I'm assuming you kind of bought it for yourself. Let's be real.
Yeah, my wife and I, we buy presents for multi-individuals. So like, I've gotten a camera, which I have no part of, but she wanted the camera. So
I hear you.
This was actually the first Christmas where we actually bought stuff literally for each other. And it was the last time that we had the podcast where you guys mentioned to me about the NFL Pass. And my wife was like, what do you want for Christmas? And I said, NFL Pass. So she goes on her cell phone. 2 minutes later, she's like, okay, you have it. And I'm like, what?
Nice.
Seriously? So so it's a great option for anybody that likes to watch NFL games, because you can watch all the games, all 17 weeks in the year. Or 16 weeks in the year. You can watch it in coaching form. You can watch it in the short form, which pretty much just takes the plays and cuts out the talking and the commercials and stuff. And then you can watch it in real-time form. So it really helps you understand things a little bit better. So I went back and I watched 2 games that were very important games in Tennessee's season this year. Tennessee being where Matt LaFleur came from. He was the offensive coordinator his first year calling plays as an offensive coordinator in this league.
Okay.
I watched both those games, and I was very impressed in the Tennessee-New England game. They came right out of the gate. They had a kickoff return for like 50 yards, and they just drove down the field on like 6 plays or whatever it was, touchdown.
Wait. Before you keep going. So you're telling me they started off with a positive, their special teams helped the team?
And no holding on the kickoff return either, yes.
Oh, foreign concept.
Just to speak of, and the funny thing, the Packers led the league in special teams penalties this year with 34.
Get out of town.
Yep.
Yeah. In other news, water's wet.
Yeah. Right. So I came away very impressed with his scheme. It's a high percentage scheme, and what I mean by that is it's very short intermediate passes. It's going to be I don't know what's going to happen here, because now he actually has an MVP caliber quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, but his offense was very intermediate and short, usually 10 yards or in, very high percentage passes, high percentage routes, and it was a very they ran out of the pistol probably the majority of their plays. That's because they have Marcus Mariota, who's a very he's a scramble heavy type quarterback, so they like that run pass option with him. But I don't think that's going to happen here in Green Bay with Aaron. I would be surprised if Aaron is in the shotgun all the time here. I think he's going to be behind center. I think he's going to be in shotgun. They're going to mix it up, and they're going to really his strength seems to be keeping opponents off balance. And when he finds something that works, i.e. the running game, there was one game, it was actually the New England game, 7 plays in a row, they called a run. And I think they had 37 or 38 yards on those 7 plays until New England stopped them, So he's a guy that just goes with what's hot. If the running game's working, he's going to go with it. If the passing game's working, he's going to go with that. So
that doesn't make any sense. Come on now.
Right, compared to what we're used to around here. It's going to be, I think it's really going to be a change in what fans are going to see this year. I think our pass to rush ratio, I would think LaFleur coming in has to see that we have some talented running backs. So I'd be very surprised if the pass to rush ratio is, it should be closer to 50-50, which I think will help balance this team. It's going to take pressure off of Aaron Rodgers. And there should be bigger plays because of it. So it'll be interesting to see what we do player personnel wise in the offseason. But he was my second favorite hire. I'll be flat out and honest with you. I like Josh McDaniels number one, but LaFleur was my number two. And I think that it was a good hire just for the fact that he's a young mind. He came from a tree of the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, who are all offensive geniuses. So being around those people, just kind of soaking up everything in those atmospheres, he has to have some very intelligent processes. And I think it should translate well here with Aaron Rodgers as the most talented quarterback. So we'll see what he can do. But I like the hire. We'll see what, to judge it at this point, it's purely speculatory, and it would be really stupid to do that because we don't.
Yeah, I hear you. That's what everybody loves to do. They go, this is a fantastic. Well, on paper, it looks great.
Right. The only thing that we do know with LaFleur is he's only had 1 year of true coaching experience. And what I mean by that is he led the offense and play called the offense in Tennessee this year. The year before in LA, he was offensive coordinator, but Sean McVay called all the plays. Okay. But the one thing that I kind of read from all the quarterbacks that he has been with, Matt Ryan, Jared Goff, Robert Griffith III, is they all thought that he was a very intelligent. He got along well with the players, and he seems to try to get down to their level to try to, develop that rapport with them. And Matt Ryan actually had his best statistical year in 2016. He had a 117% quarterback rating, which is currently the fifth highest quarterback rating in NFL history.
Rodgers owns the first one, right? Got him. He's got it.
I think so.
2011, I think he had the highest.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was above 117. So he had 38 TDs that year, threw for almost 5,000 yards. That's the year that Atlanta went to the Super Bowl and canned it in the Super Bowl against the Patriots when they were up 28-3 and ended up losing. But, all the quarterbacks, Dan Orlovsky, next quarterback, who's now on the NFL Network as a dude that knows the game very well, spoke very highly of him. Every quarterback that has been with him has had nothing but glowing recommendations to say about him. So that tells me something that he's personable, he's likable, and I hope that translates well with Aaron Rodgers. So.
Cool. No, that's well said. Couple things. The number one thing that I liked about the hire, I didn't know much about him. But the number one thing I liked was that he had no connection to the Packers.
Right.
I think that the fact that they brought in some true new blood and young new blood was great. I was really, as you know, I don't have the most confidence in the Quadrilateral Authority, but Murphy surprised me with this one. Pleasantly surprised me with this one. So that's obviously good. I've been teetering back and forth, how valuable or pros and cons of a young versus an older coach. That's interesting. Obviously right now, young coaches are the hot thing, and the league is such a copycat thing. I didn't realize how young the guy from the Rams, McVay, he's 33 years old.
Right.
My God.
And he also joked and said that he has no coaching tree just because of the fact that he's 32, 33, that he's so young.
I'll give the Rams credit for bringing that guy in, but holy cow. That's young, Mm-hmm. But so yeah, those two things definitely pleasantly surprised me about LaFleur with Murphy and all them. Now, did you guys see the press conference?
Mm-hmm. I listened to it.
Yeah. Did you watch it?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I watched. I watched most of it. It was on when I was at the gym.
Okay, what you think?
I feel like I wish I could go back and see what previous press conferences were like, because I thought it was a little strange. So much of it was Murphy.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. I mean, basically, LaFleur looked nervous as shit, and at first I'm like, oh, I don't know about this because he looked. I was like, this is our first introduction to the guy, and you're like, how well does he carry himself and all that. But at the same time, I'm like, well, for Christ's sake, the guy's 39 years old. He literally just got hired at one of the most prestigious organizations in all of sports, no matter what. So I can definitely see why he came across as nervous. So I'll kind of, give him a little bit of slack there. I mean, it wasn't like he bombed the press conference, but you could tell he was nervous. But yeah, it was the Murphy show, definitely. And Gutekunst maybe spoke for like a minute, and it wasn't really much of anything. It was just odd because it kind of it reaffirmed to me, if anything, that this is Murphy's team.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. Gutekunst is the GM, but he's more just personnel. I mean, it's Murphy's definitely putting his stamp and everything, and so LaFleur didn't say much, but I guess Murphy, it's an interesting situation. He's obviously. He's goofy, for lack of a better term, but he's definitely got ego. He's definitely got I wouldn't say charisma, but he's confident. And then what was really interesting too is he threw a bullshit out there. He said the word bullshit in his press conference. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, heard that. Yep.
Yeah.
I was watching it on stream on Packers Live or on Packers.com, and when he threw it, he goes, well, I just threw him some bullshit. Oh, excuse me, sorry about that. Like where he forgot where he was, and I was like, did I just hear that? I mean, these aren't huge things. They're more or less kind of like observations, and they're interesting. So the dynamic of this front office is still. It's almost like to be determined. I really don't know what the heck Gutekunst is. Part of me is like, why was he even there? It should have just been Murphy and LaFleur. But at the same time, it should be Murphy going, here I am. Now the GM, and the coach will talk and take questions, and you know what I mean. But it was like the reverse. So that was kind of interesting. I really didn't quite see that coming. But
I will say this. I think things that have transpired, even in the press conference, I think it's a pretty clear line of accountability right now. What happens on the field is going to be Gutekunst's responsibility, and what happens to the team is going to be on Murphy. I think that it's been cleared up this offseason, especially in the press conference. When I listened to it, that's what I garnered was, Mark Murphy is taking the whole press conference to talk. So he is the man of this organization. So, that's just kind of, I didn't watch the press conference. I listened to it, but that's just kind of what I've gathered from that. But just listening to, or just kind of taking everything in from this off season, I think that clear line of that chain of command has kind of been set with those two individuals. And then the coach will obviously, LaFleur, he'll obviously handle the team on the field. But I think, the team as a whole, player personnel is going to be handled by Gut, and the team as a whole will be handled by Murphy.
I kind of see what you're saying, but if anything, it's just I think everything goes back to Murphy. The whole team, the whole damn shoot match. Everything permeates down, starts from him. They all said that they like. Obviously, they got blown away in the interview by LaFleur. The quadrilateral authority, which was actually the triangle, because I wouldn't put the coach in there quite yet. So it's Murphy, Gutekunst, and Ball. They interviewed, and then they slept on it, and then they all supposedly agreed that he was the guy, which is all fine and dandy. But just the feeling I get is Murphy's got his stamp all over the team now in business and football. So if the team, kind of where I'm going is as a hypothetical, if this, God forbid, but say this next coming season, LaFleur isn't way over his head, finds out, and he's a shitty coach and whatever. That's not going to be on Gutekunst.
No,
at all.
Right.
It might not even a morsel of it. That's on Murphy. To me, again, that's my own opinion, based on what I'm hearing and seeing. And again, I'm not saying something like that's going to happen because I don't believe it will. But that's where anywhere and everywhere this team goes for the next, I don't know, however many years, it's all going to be Murphy. Everywhere
Right.
from business stuff down to the who's filling out the what do you want to call it, the employee performance reports for the fucking janitor down the hall. That's going to go to Murphy.
Right. But I think we have all discussed this in the past, that we did not know what the chain of command was going to be like with this organization. We had no clue.
I still feel like it's convoluted is kind of where we're going.
Yeah, it is. But I think it's defined itself. It defined itself now to a two-man. It's not a quadrilateral. What do you want to call it? A duo collateral? I don't know what you call it. But,
I know
it's a little bit more intricate than typically what happens with the rest of the NFL and the other 32 teams. So it's an interesting dynamic, but I just don't know how it's going to shape out. I mean, I don't believe Murphy is a football guy. He's, like you said, he's a business guy. I think he's very he's well versed in that area. But the football side of it. I guess how the hire happened. I mean, we interviewed 10 or 11 candidates, and then the last guy was, or maybe one of the last guys was LaFleur, and they just came away completely blown away by it. And then the next day, on Monday, they hired him. I would have liked to have been a fly in that room, because most of these interviews go on for about an hour, maybe 2 hours. The second interviews go on for a lot longer. The first interview is typically an introductory to each person that's in the interview room. And obviously the candidate that's coming in, he's going to try to sell himself. But it's nothing where you're sitting there all day long and shooting the shit. I mean, it's wham bam, and you're trying to sell it. So
Sure.
what they saw in an hour and 2 hours had to be something really good.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I will say this about the quote quadrilateral. Russ Ball isn't going to have nearly as much pull or whatever as maybe I thought it was. He's a contract guy, and I haven't seen or heard from him up until they said that he was a part of this interview. So to me, it's and again, the coach is about as close to he's on the field, so he is the kind of by de facto, he is the start of the football product on the field, if you will. So to me, the big things are Gutekunst and Murphy, right? And are the two big players, I guess, of this 4-part thing. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, I still don't know of those two. Maybe I should say of Gutekunst and Murphy. I don't know who exactly does what. I can't imagine Murphy is getting that involved with, let's say, drafting or free agents or trades. I mean, maybe he'll do signing off on those or whatever, which is all fine and dandy. Maybe, as I'm just sitting here thinking about it, Murphy really wanted a hand in that coach, and that was where it kind of, he'll taper off from that. But right now, and even based on the press conference, it just seems still kind of like, who's on first. A little bit. Maybe it will define itself more after this, since the coach has been fired or hired. But still, the GM should have done the amount of talking Murphy did, and Murphy should have done the amount of talking that Gutekunst did. And that's why I was like, okay. But we'll have to let it play out. This is all kind of hypothetical stuff, and we're reading into things we see. But I was talking to somebody, one of my buddies, the other day, and I said, ever since the offseason between 2017 and 2018, almost every decision that's been made, either by almost anybody on the upper level, whether it's Murphy, whether it's Gutekunst, or McCarthy or whatever, every decision that had been made, I'm looking at them going, that's not going to solve anything. I don't think that's the right decision. This past offseason, not this forward one. So maybe they did finally get their act in gear. Kind of rambling there, but so I guess in short, they need to, Gutekunst and Murphy, I guess, need to sell me and to us, the fan base, that they know what the fuck they're doing now, and hopefully they learn their lesson from this past offseason where they were just essentially reshuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic. You know what I mean?
Right.
So hopefully that makes some sense.
I think the undercard, the wild card of this offseason is going to be the player personnel department, because currently there are 19 members in our department that are currently led by Brian Gutekunst. You have Ted Thompson, your senior advisor. Senior is right. Senior is right.
Yeah.
John Eric Sullivan, who's the co-director of player personnel, he came over from the Jets last year. They hired him was it right before the season started?
Mm-hmm.
John Wojciechowski, who's the other co-director of player personnel. They have a director of college scouting, a national scout, an assistant director of pro scouting, salary cap analyst, a personnel executive, a pro scout, and then 7 college scouts, a college scouting coordinator, and a pro personnel coordinator.
All right.
And I did a little searching and kind of looked at other teams as far as their structures go. And every team has many scouts. In fact, we're on the lower end of the scouting chain.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Because usually you have a scout that takes care of every demographic of the country, and there are 8 of them. We only have 7 scouts. So, I guess maybe your college scouting coordinator is one of them. I don't know. But I look at the names in our department, and I mean, these guys are green. They're all young.
Okay.
They're all under 50 years old.
Right.
Except for Senior Ted.
Senior Ted.
Senior. So the way that this organization is kind of shaping out is they're trying to get you talked about being at rebuilding. I think the front office was almost a complete rebuild.
That was exactly what I was just going to say. Good timing.
I think in a sense, we have transformed being led by a 70-year-old Ted Thompson down to a 40-some-year-old Brian Gutekunst, and the rest of that department is very young. So, that's the new trend. That's the rebuild. Truly it is.
Yeah, no, that makes sense as I think about it. Elliot, what did you think of, the press conference and all this kind of stuff? What do you think?
I was, I guess I was surprised that they were so candid with the little story about how they all slept on it and then said, nope, that's still our guy. And they
were pretty transparent about the hiring process. I'll give them that.
Yeah. And the fact that it seems like if you get along with I don't know exactly who was all involved, but if you get along with Murphy and Gutekunst, I guess you get the job. I mean, because presumably,
I think I know where you're going, but yeah,
because presumably, on paper, they only interviewed people they thought would be good anyway, right? They already had the stats. So, I mean, I don't know why they would bother interviewing anybody if they didn't have the, some data to back it up. But I don't know. It was a little strange to me. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I hear you.
I mean, it's sort of like I don't know. It's a small business, but it's millions and millions of dollars flowing through there, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, so they treat it like they're gonna all be hanging out in the the break room together. I don't know. So that. I don't know. It didn't make me feel super confident in their decision making ability. Now, I based on what I know, what I've heard, and especially Jeremy's ideas on it, I think he's going to be great. But I think that's almost like a happy accident.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. And I was just thinking while you're talking there that I wonder. Talk about a fly on the wall. I wonder what LaFleur thinks of the Packers organization and this structure. Now I would say, the Packers brand still has a ton of cachet, as we know this. I mean, is it, can you just waltz out and say we're the Packers and, the rest will take care of itself? No, but they still have a ton of, brand equity, and they have Aaron Rodgers, even if he had a down year. So it's not like it's an unattractive job, but I just like to know, how LaFleur and that dynamic was, and we'll never know, but what it was like when he was introduced to during that interview process. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure the rest of the league has been kind of like, if you read Bob McGinn and his columns, I subscribe to that. How shall I say this? Bob McGinn is not a fan of the current regime at all. He basically doesn't like where the Packers are headed. I don't want to, whatever, but you wonder what, the rumors or just like the stories are just, LaFleur took the job. Pays a lot. I mean, it's almost like I'm just trying to get it down to like granular stuff. Paid a lot of money, you got to raise. He plays with Aaron Rodgers, all that stuff. But you just wonder the way they're doing things now, I guess. And let me take a step back from that. So the Packers have done things the same way, shall we say, since 1991, right? So as we think about that, for lack of a better term, a little different here and there, but that's 30 years of doing things that way. So now we're looking at different way of doing things. And to me, it's like, well, it's different, but it also feels a little uncomfortable because the short history of what they've done hasn't been very pretty, right? Mm-hmm. This way. But also part of me is going, well, it is a changing league. It is a change, all these things, so for all we know, 5 years from now, we're going to be sitting here with 3 more Super Bowl rings, and we're going to be like, God damn, Murphy was a freaking genius with the quadrilateral authority, and he was way ahead of the curve, with that structure. I doubt it, but the Packers are also a unique organization too. So it's all those kind of interesting things, but. Yeah, it did have kind of an odd feel, I'm still kind of in a cocoon, as I've said on previous podcasts over the past few weeks and even months, I haven't been paying much attention to the rest of the league at all. I basically just pay attention to my Packers, due to just some other personal things that have gone on in my life and just where my sensibilities are at. I'm like, I want to pay attention to my Packers. I don't want to be naive or completely uninformed about the rest of the league, but I just know mostly of what I see with the Packers. So for all I know, more teams are going towards this, or there's still quote unquote dysfunction with other teams. I think sometimes I sit here and I get caught up in the fact that like, we're a damn mess. Look at this, when in reality, it's not that bad. Things always kind of end up in the middle. So hopefully this makes some sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was making fun of the hiring process, but like if you think about the personalities in the league, especially with some of the more successful teams, mm-hmm. I think that hiring process is kind of the same anyway. They're like, well, this guy seems good, but I have to like him, right?
Yeah.
So I maybe it'll be fine. I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic. I feel much more upbeat about things than I did a month ago. Certainly 2 months ago.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The one thing I think that I personally like about LaFleur is I think the positivity there is it's infectious. We haven't had a lot of positivity in this organization since 2016, I guess you could possibly say, since we were at the NFC Championship. But throughout the organization, it's been very stale. It's been very downtrodden almost. It just kind of seemed like, everybody just threw water on the coal, I think his positivity, his personability. I mean, you said that he sounded nervous in the press conference. I thought he did too, but I'm never going to turn down or knock a guy for being nervous, because I was nervous on my first podcast with you guys. So
I hear. I mean, the guy's freaking 39 years old.
Right?
In a league where a lot of times guys who, I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but in a league where guys are getting coaching jobs, typically in the past, they're getting, you're not becoming a coach until you're 50 something, and they got guys in their 30s doing it with not much experience. It's kind of a new trend. It's the way things are going. So that in and of itself is new, and as I think about it, it's kind of refreshing, as I sit here and think about it, I go, wow, we got a young guy in here. He looks kind of nervous because, he's trying to figure it out too, but that's actually kind of cool because we've been doing the same shit for 30 years, Oh.
Yeah, I mean, LaFleur only has legitimately 10 years of coaching experience in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So literally he's 39 years old and he's very young and very inexperienced. But the experience that he has had 4 years in Washington as a quarterbacks coach. 1 year at Notre Dame he took a little rest there in 2014 at Notre Dame. And then 2015-16 with Atlanta as a quarterbacks coach, 17 with the Rams as an offensive coordinator, and last year with Tennessee as the offensive coordinator. His coaching resume isn't very long.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
If you want to throw anything out there, I guess that could be the question is, who do we have? Because we don't have a lot of paperwork on him, So I think that part kind of excites me because now we get to see somebody who's going to come in with a completely new mindset and just say, this is how I want to lead this team. I'm going to go back, I'm going to watch film, and I'm going to watch tape, and I'm going to interview players that are on this team, and I'm going to get their perspective on it. And I'm going to do the exact opposite of what everybody is telling me and what I see on film. And I'm going to bring the energy back into it because, not except for Pete Carroll, older coaches tend to be not as enthusiastic. It's mostly your younger coaches. Will he be that guy? I don't know. But the fact that he's 39 years old and their offensive coordinator is 39 years old, their new offensive coordinator named today, Nathaniel Hackett, you breathe some sense of just some new ideas and
newness.
Right. There's the word, and that kind of excites me because what have we been talking about this whole year? How stale everything is. This offense is stale, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. We have new minds now. We'll see. Nathaniel Hackett probably is nothing more than just a figure out there. We don't know what that structure is going to be like, but Matt LaFleur has said he's going to call plays. So, it's going to be the same thing that we had with Mike McCarthy, where McCarthy called the plays and so on and so forth. But it sounds like Matt LaFleur's idea with the offensive coordinator is to be more hands-on with the offense and especially the quarterback, which is where Nathaniel Hackett excels throughout his career. So, I think there's just so many positives to that,
Yeah, and you make, as you were talking, I was thinking about McCarthy during game day and all that. It's like all that guy, and it worked for a while or whatever, but all I remember him is just having his head buried in the play sheet every week. Mm-hmm. It's like he was oblivious to the team. Right. On game day, Right. I think there does need to be something said for that. Real quick though, going back to Josh McDaniels, did he interview? I can't even remember. Did he actually interview with the Packers?
Yep, he did.
And he ended up going back to New England, I guess.
Yeah, and the only interview he had was with the Packers. I tried to get dig up some dirt on him. I couldn't find anything. I don't know what happened here. The only thing that I took from it all was Mark Murphy said the candidates that they interviewed, besides Matt LaFleur, had nothing special about them. There was nothing that stood out. They were just kind of there. So. Was McDaniels
you wonder, yeah, and you also wonder though if McDaniels, he interviewed, but then he saw what he saw the structure and he saw kind of maybe got more in tune with the roster, and he was like, "Fuck this."
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. Part of me is thinking that he's like, I don't think so.
No, he's a smart dude. He'd be taking a step back coming here. In reality, he would be, because right now, yeah.
Going from offensive coordinator to head coach? Well, you're okay. I see what you're talking
about. I'm just speaking from an organizational standpoint. The Patriots are in the AFC Championship right now. We're sitting at home just talking about our new head coach.
Wait, did you see? I think they're in their 10th straight AFC Championship.
Right.
10.
Yeah.
God damn. What tells the Patriots love to hate them. Jealous as shit.
Yeah.
I think this says something about the team. I read somewhere today that Aaron Rodgers in the next 3 years will make $103 million. Tom Brady in the past
but that's only like
years,
that's only like 60 million after taxes.
Will make $101 million in the past 7 years. So what does that mean? Tom Brady has sacrificed 4 championships. He has sacrificed financial incentives to get championships. Because, we talked about this. There's been no quarterback that has ever won a Super Bowl taking over 13% of the salary cap. Tom Brady never did that because he allowed that team to actually give some players and build a team around himself.
I still go back to, I hear exactly what you're saying. I still go back to Brady probably knew they'd build a goddamn team around him. Rodgers, I'm willing to bet there's a part of this. He knew, he's looking back, he's going, they're not going to build shit around me. I'm taking that money, baby. And I almost don't blame him for that. If they're not going to build a team around him, take the money. Part of me doesn't blame him for that. The other part, is kind of whatever. That's my own kind of personal theory on that. Now,
right. But I mean, they went out this offseason and brought in Jimmy Graham, made him the highest paid tight end in the league, and based off of
he was the highest paid tight end in the league.
Based off of he was.
I didn't know that.
Based off of accolades.
Based on what he's done, not what he will do.
Not what he will do. What more could Aaron Rodgers want? Now, all he would want is to have a coordinator that would incorporate him into the offense a little bit better. But, hopefully we have that. And, we'll see if Graham comes back. But, I mean, this offseason, the only thing that they didn't do to help Rodgers was to give him a line to block for him.
Yep. And the line got they didn't have the greatest line, but they got hurt.
No. But we knew if they had injuries, they were in trouble, and I think that went for pretty much every position on this team, and that's what happened. So
I agree, razor thin.
So I you know what? I have a question about the Tom Brady thing.
Uh-huh.
I mean, do you think he goes in, negotiates a contract, and says, "Yeah, that's too much. Why don't you guys pay me less?"
No, he does not. No. I was just going to say, actually, it's a good point to Jeremy that I think they work the money around differently.
Yes.
Through bonuses or whatever. He's still making a lot of money, but in terms of the cap hits,
yes,
and how that's done, he's doing it in a way that allows that where he doesn't take up X% of the cap. But to your point, Elliot, I guarantee you they're moving money around in different spots, so he's making a shit ton of money. I think we'd be naive to think otherwise.
So isn't that? I mean, I know it's hindsight and all, but and we talked about it beforehand too. Like, I don't understand why they just seem to jump on that so much. Like it was like almost like there was no negotiation. and I know it was ongoing.
Oh, with Rodgers?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, they gave away their any leverage position they did have when they said, we're going to make him the highest paid quarterback in the league. That's what they said over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, that's fine and dandy. That negotiation isn't going to go very well if you want to get, you know what I mean? Because you have said publicly over and over, we want to do this. We want him to get the most money. Okay, it's fine and dandy.
And then they waited for Matt Ryan to sign, and then they knew exactly what they were going to be giving him.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that kind of goes back to that whole quadrilateral of authority idea where we don't have, like, who made the ultimate decision on that?
Yeah. Murphy. But
right.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying.
And like it seems like does he just have unlimited power? And what did he do to earn that really?
Well, who is checking Murphy? It's the board of directors, right? Or the board of,
and they're just,
let's be real. They're,
right.
Well, just so you know, I did a little investigation in the Packers structure. There's an executive and then a board of directors. The board of directors vote the 7 exexecutives in.
And they executive committee.
Right.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, let's call it what it is. Within the Packers structure, being the kind of publicly owned team and all that fancy dancy stuff, Murphy is essentially the owner, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not an owner, but he is the owner, kind of a thing. So, he's not a Jerry Jones or a Dan Snyder or anything like that, but he is in effect, I would say it's tough on the surface to check his power based on the structure we have, if that makes sense.
Right.
Or it's just different how they do it. So, yeah, I mean, Murphy can, in essence, kind of do, what he wants to some degree, I guess. Going back to LaFleur, though, sorry, not to get too far off base there, but one thing that is fascinating to me is, the most interesting thing about this whole offseason outside of the coach and all that itself is I can't wait to see Aaron Rodgers in a different offense.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot wait to see that. Is there a part of me that thinks he could absolutely wreck the league again? Damn right. Is there part of me that thinks it could be more of the same in some regret? A little bit, but I'm really excited because I tend to think if you're going to pick one or the other, I think he's going to wreck the league. Think about how, knowing Rodgers and his personality, he has got to be, I mean, you talk about motivated, and if he's not motivated now and he's not willing to really get her going, and now that he's got a new offense and there is kind of a changing of the guard, he'll never be motivated. You know what I mean? So I think it's a very real possibility if they get him some more players. He still needs some players, some decent free agents, and a good draft and all that kind of stuff. And they stay healthy. There's always that caveat. I think he could wreck the league. I think he could just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and I think I'm not.
And maybe he's
sold. I'm not entirely sold on getting more wide receivers. I mean, would that be nice? It would be, but having a wide receiver coach that can coach these guys up and tell them that when the play breaks down, this is how you get into it. That's what we need, is some coaches that can teach these young guys something. That's exponentially a lot better than just getting all the talent in the world, because talent doesn't equal victories.
Yeah, and I mean, with Rodgers, I was thinking about the other day. There's a guy, I think his name's Dusty Evely on Twitter, and he breaks down a lot of Rodgers film, and he'd been looking at film from 2013, 14, even 2011, and it's like, if you look at that, the poise and the arm strength and just him gunning, the ball and whatnot, and better pocket presence, Rodgers was hurt more than we thought this year. He had the MCL, and that was a bad knee injury. Who knows if he was even completely healed from that collarbone?
I don't think he was.
Throwing shoulder. Did he have all all those? He wasn't right this year physically, is what I mean. And I think, and when he knew the team was kind of shit and McCarthy, all that stuff, so he wasn't right physically and mentally, if you know what I mean. His mechanics and everything was just fucking shit. And he used to be the king of it. He used to be the most mechanically, even though he'd run around and make a lot of plays out of the pocket, still his mechanics and his footwork were unreal. I think he was hurt more than we thought.
I think he was hurt, and also, if you follow David Chow on Twitter, he's a big doctor extraordinaire. He kind of talks about player injuries and stuff like that, and he talked about a broken collarbone and what that would do to an athlete. Some athletes can get over it, but he said if you're a pitcher or a quarterback, you have to really work yourself. And Rodgers didn't really have that much time. And David Chow was kind of saying that it's more than a year process. It's got to be at least 2 years to work that shoulder, because that bone is, all the muscles around it and the tendons and everything are pretty much out of commission for so long while you're trying to let it heal. And
they atrophy.
Yeah.
You can't tell me they don't atrophy,
Right.
And now he's a professional athlete. He can work them back better.
But you can't atrophy anything to the bone. I mean, we're talking.
No, you're right. What I'm saying is the muscles around it. So say they, now we're getting into real hypotheticals. But say the muscles, if it's completely, he's in a sling and he's not doing anything. Well, that's all healing for say months and months and months, or even a few months. All the muscles around there atrophy. You have to build them back up. So I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but long story short, I think he was hurt in general worse than we thought. Collarbone, knee, all that. And then I think mentally it got to him, the condition of the team, the injuries, maybe realizing that he wasn't completely healed on the collarbone. I think you saw it permeate from physical to mental, if that makes sense. And then when he knew so it was just a weird, perfect storm of stuff. So, if he's not back better than ever, stronger than ever, more determined than ever, it ain't ever going to happen again. This has got to be it. And like I said, I think he could really wreck the league. And I don't want to completely shift gears here, but Jesus Christ, did you see Patrick Mahomes and what this guy's doing? Have you seen what this guy's doing?
He's the new Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, he looks great.
He threw a goddamn curveball the other day, sidearm. Did you see that?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I've never seen it. I was speechless when I saw that. He slung that thing damn near sidearm, and the ball, it was like a curveball. It didn't even look real.
His arm strength is just off the charts.
I mean, it's just, I hate to tell you, but it's like Rodgers never done anything like that. Not even really close to that.
Right.
And Rodgers his arm's like a toy, you know. That guy, he's Rodgers 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
He's done some stuff that's just been unbelievable. I didn't want to bring it up, but I was just like, my jaw hit the floor when I saw this throw that he did.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's good to see, you know, because
and I mean, a guy like that, you got to think is the future of the league, where you're going to start seeing. I mean, he looks special, so it's not like everybody's going to get it, but you're going to see more. You might see that position change even more to things like that, and things like that over the next few years become quote unquote more normal, and it's already easier for quarterbacks to play. You know what I mean? So it's going to allow, the rules and whatnot are going to allow for quarterbacks to be more creative, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in the pocket. I don't think you can be like Lamar Jackson. I just that does not sustain having a quarterback that is going to carry the ball 200 sometimes a game or 200 sometimes a year, and that's just not going to work. It's never worked in the NFL. We know,
maybe Mahomes may get figured out. I don't really think so. Because remember when you had the Kaepernicks and you had the Robert Griffins, and they're like, oh my God, this is the new thing. But they got figured out. You know.
Well, and I think everybody was saying too, when they lost Kareem Hunt, they were like, "Wow, they lost a huge piece of that offense." They scored 31 points against the Colts in the last, half of the season. This team's defense was on fire. So did Kareem Hunt really hurt them?
Is Mahomes in his first or second year?
This is his second year. His first year as a starter.
Oh, he's going to win MVP. I don't see how he doesn't.
Hands down. I don't see how he wouldn't.
He is just, like I said, I still cannot believe that throw. Mm-hmm. I still can't. Well.
Oh, he's had a reel of throws like that this year. The one in Seattle was another one too.
I'll have to give her credit. Credit's due. So yeah, I didn't mean to quite go on that, but I just thinking about Rodgers and what he used to do and all that, it kind of made me think of that. So.
Yep.
So I was wondering what you guys thought about. I've been hearing a lot of chatter about the playoffs this year feeling kind of boring. That things just have been kind of unveiling, being unwrapping as expected. I don't know. Like I guess personally I kind of feel that way, but I don't know if it's because the Packers just aren't there. But everything seems like it's just nothing unexpected seems to be happening.
I hear that, but I agree to some extent, but you know what? I'll take winning a Super Bowl even if it looks boring any fucking day of the week.
Right.
And you look at the Patriots. Patriots are kind of like Alabama. You respect them, but you get kind of tired of them. I think Michael Rodney on Twitter said something to the effect of that, and it makes a lot of sense. It's like the Patriots. You're like dead Texas and the Patriots, but you got to marvel at them. They are boring. They're one of the most boring dynasties or whatever like that. But all they do is win. That's all they do.
Yeah. I don't know how that's boring.
No, it's. I don't think that the good teams are necessarily boring. It just feels like I don't know. I mean, even the games that were competitive didn't seem super exciting.
One thing I did hear was that and maybe Jeremy, you said this, or I saw this somewhere. It's the top 4 offenses in the league. Wait a minute. Got to the divisional because now we're at. Sorry, I'm stupid. I'm really bad at math. Top 4 offenses are in championship. Is that the first time it's ever happened?
I don't know.
But so to that point, you're like, okay, you expected based on everything you're seeing. Well, they're there. There was no unexpected. There's no fun stuff. A lot of people thought that the Colts, they were getting really hot. They might do something kind of like the Packers in 2010 where they shit the bed.
Right. But I think to Elliot's point, I think when you talk about whether the playoffs have been invigorating or boring, you have the number 1 and number 2 seed of each conference in their respective championships. So has anything frayed from what we all thought was going to happen? No, because your top 2 seeds are there. Now, if the Colts would have gone on and let's say Philadelphia yesterday beat New Orleans, would have things kind of livened up? Yeah, you betcha, because you're talking about 2 6 seeds getting in the NFC Championship, and that doesn't happen often. So to Elliot's point, based off of what we've seen, the 4 teams that pretty much everybody expected to be in the championship series is there currently. So does that make it boring? Yeah, you could say so.
I hear you. I hear exactly what you're saying. And I mean, as you guys know, I have to, full disclosure, I haven't seen any games outside of the Packers this year. I don't watch any other football. And that's by choice. I hear about things, whatnot on Twitter here and there and whatnot, but I have not watched any other games this entire season. And I've missed a couple Packers games. And this is kind of philosophical on my end too a little bit, but just speaking frankly, it's I'm okay with that and actually feel good about that from the standpoint of I don't want to get too caught and too enveloped in it, and it feels good in that way. It's kind of hard to describe, I guess, but
well, someday we'll match your love, but until then, I'm gonna watch all the games.
Well, there's certain games like I'll say in the past and whatnot, and before my little medical thing last year, as we like to call it. Yeah, my little episode. I would have watched as many games as I could, and I would have, cheered against this and all that kind of stuff, and just to watch. I feel like literally like, just like a Packer fan, and that's it, Yeah. I'm getting very what's the word? But it's just
Tired.
Interesting how. Yeah, nice. I'm pontificating, I guess, is a word. But it's just kind of refreshing, me personally, that I can just look at it that way and be that way and not.
So, did you guys want to mention anything else on these on the notes that Jeremy wrote up? Like Ron Zook being Zook.
Not retained. That's a euphemism for right.
Yeah, so we have 1 out of 2 new coordinators, right? Pettin was retained, defensive coordinator. We have a new offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett. And right now, I think that's going to start trickling down. Once they have their coordinators, it's going to start trickling down to the position coaches. But like you said, Ron Zook is gone.
Joe
James
Witt
Campen,
fired. Yeah.
James Campen left. Joe Witt was actually fired.
Interesting.
David Raw, their wide receiver coach, went to Arizona for the same thing. And
did you hear that David Raw? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but David Raw. There was Bob McGinn wrote an article about him and eviscerated the guy.
Yeah.
Apparently, he didn't know what the hell he was doing or something weird.
Well, that showed on the field with the rookies, not being able to get open after the play broke down. But the interesting thing is going to be these coaches in limbo that we're still kind of waiting to hear about. Hiring Nathaniel Hackett today would eliminate Joe Philbin, but he is interviewing for offensive line coach at Minnesota. So could he interview?
Philbin needs to go. I love the guy. But that when McCarthy brought him back, stupid. McCarthy did the very comfortable, easy thing when he remember the whole scrub brush to the offense, this, that, or the other. When he brought back Philbin, I rolled my eyes. I'm going, what is this? So, I mean, he's a great guy, and he did an admirable job, doing whatever he's doing, but he needs to go.
I have no problem trying to eliminate the McCarthy era in the coaching staff here. Yeah. The one coach that's going to hurt is James Campen. I
agree with that. Yep.
He has been ascending coach. He's been here since 2004.
So he was here with Sherman.
Right. And he's an ascending coach. He actually has the title of associate head coach in Cleveland. So he's number 2. So let's say, for example,
like Winston Moss, remember that?
Oh, no, I don't.
Well, he was like associate assistant to the
I was joking.
main head coach. Oh, I know him too.
I don't remember that guy anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, but that one, I think they're going to miss that on the.
Campen, I agree.
Yeah, he's coached some great offensive linemen in his tenure here. So
and he's worked with mid-round picks. A lot of times and made him great.
Right. I mean, on that line, we've only had 2 number 1 picks since 2010. Sherrod and Bulaga.
What the hell happened with Sherrod?
He broke his leg on that gruesome special teams play where I mean his leg just cut out. It was so gruesome, and that was tough to come back from. And so we can't say he was a bust because he had an injury that was purely, it was horrific.
Yeah, you're right. I'd almost forgot. My memory on that was very hazy. But Spriggs, they didn't. What the hell, Spriggs? God damn it. He looked like one of those can't miss guys, and boy, did he. I don't know.
Well, there's some guys that can handle getting beat in this league, and there's some guys that can't. And I think in the earlier part of his career, he was kind of forced into action probably a little earlier than what he should have been. And he got beat up pretty good. And some guys can get over that mental hurdle, Some can't. And I think that's where he stands is I just think that his ego is beaten up pretty bad, and I don't know if he can recover it. I truly don't.
I remember when they put him in. When was it? He had to come in because Bulaga, whatever, and he got biffed immediately. It was sad, It was just like you knew when he came in, and you could tell that McCarthy wasn't going to give him any help because he usually doesn't do that anyway. Correct. And he got turnstiled on the very first play. Terrible.
Yep.
Some of these other coaches, when you're talking coaches in limbo, I mean, I know Joe Philbin, Jim Hostler, offensive pass game coordinator. I love that title. Not Patrick Graham, Cignetti Jr. Rumor has it Rodgers was not a fan of him, and he wanted Van Pelt.
Yep. I don't mean to interrupt you, but go back to the Patrick Graham. He's rumored to be the next defensive coordinator in Miami once they hire Brian Flores from the Patriots. So it sounds like he's pretty much all been lost and gone. So
okay. Speaking of QB coach, I read somewhere online. I can't remember exactly, but when did Clements leave? Tom Clements.
15.
Did he leave after 15?
Yeah, because that was the year or was it? Yeah, it was right after the NFC Championship in Seattle. He called the first 3 or 4 games as an offensive coordinator. Then McCarthy took the play calling back, and then that was his last year here.
It was the year after the NFC Champion. Yeah, 2014 with the NFC Champion. Okay. The reason I bring up Clements though is there was some. I can't remember exactly where I saw it or whatever, but it was on Twitter where, I love the unnamed sources or people connected with whatever said that Clements is the guy who made Rodgers. It wasn't McCarthy.
Yeah.
And Rodgers obviously loved Clements, and he was his quarterback's coach for I can't remember how many years, but I think so. It was interesting, I guess, basically that Clements left obviously because I think it was a bruised ego when McCarthy took the play calling away from him, or maybe got another better gig or something. I'm not exactly sure, but and to be perfectly honest, my memory is still a little hazy on that. But it was just interesting. I saw that where Clements was kind of the guy behind the scenes that probably did more to help and make Rodgers in his career than anybody else, including McCarthy, including Van Pelt, including this, that, the other. It was Clements. I just thought that was very interesting.
Tom Clements is not coaching anymore.
Yeah. He's
currently out there.
He was the QB coach for us for what other titles did he have?
He had he was pretty much an offensive guy.
Okay. It'd be interesting, to know, because Rodgers wasn't happy when he left, and Rodgers wasn't happy when Van Pelt left. You know.
Oh, well, he's had quite a history.
And I'm talking just with the Packers, is what I'm saying.
Okay, with the Packers. 2006 was his first year as a quarterback's coach. That lasted until 2011. Until 2012, he was the offensive coordinator. He held that title until 2014. 2015, he was the associate head coach and offensive coordinator, and then he was also the same thing in 2016. So I was wrong.
Okay, so he left after 16, though.
Yep.
Okay.
He's been here since 2006.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, he was obviously 2006. Yeah, I mean, he was extremely formative in Rodgers' years. So that it was just an interesting aside about Clements, even though obviously he's been gone a little bit. I thought I'd bring that up. I don't know anything about Cignetti, but whatever. Defensive. I honestly don't know anything about these other coaches you got here, to be perfectly honest. For the coaches in limbo section you have here.
Yep. I think the one that is a big name is Jerry Montgomery. It sounds like the players really like him, and it sounds like he knows he's an ex-defensive lineman himself from back of his playing days. But it sounds like he's very he knows how to get across to players and relates to them pretty well. So I think he would be a tremendous loss if they lost him. I've heard rumors that he's been talking about being a position coach or a defensive coordinator for other teams, but he's a big name. I think that would be nice to have back because he has developed a rapport with the players, and he also has the coaching ability to get across to that. I mean,
the defensive line, the starters are good. I mean, they got some good talent. They got Kenny Clark, they got Mike Daniels. I don't know where Mike Daniels is in his career, but he's still pretty good. Who's the other guy I'm thinking of? Who's the other guy? Damn it.
Muhammad Wilkerson.
No, Clark Daniels. And was Wilkerson the other starter?
He was the other starter.
Okay.
And then you have Dean Lowry. Montrevious Adams.
He's a try-hard guy. But with Clark and Daniels, there's definitely something there.
But they need more there. There.
No doubt they do, and they need depth. I mean, God, they were ravaged by freaking injuries this year again. And I hate to go. Every team suffers injuries, yes, but has anyone done a true analysis of the Packers versus the rest of the league, say the past 10 years? I'd love to know what it is. I'd love to know what it is. And maybe it's because they're real conservative. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's the water. Don't know. But I mean, they were just eviscerated. I remember, what was it? Right when McCarthy, even in the Arizona game, so the game he got fired. I remember looking at their injury list and who they had out there. Jeez, particularly on defense, just nothing.
Yeah, to think that they were ravaged by injuries so much that they had guys off the streets playing significant snaps, and they finished 18th in the NFL.
That's insane.
Mike Pettin should get the Coach of the Year award.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, that's
Capers had a lot more talent and couldn't get anywhere near that. So.
Yeah, I agree. Brutal. So, yeah, I don't have much else go on there. Obviously, in the next.
You guys have any? Do you guys have playoff picks?
Yeah.
It's going to be Chiefs, Patriots in AFC Championship, and then NFC. It is
Saints and the Rams.
Ooh, that's going to be a good one. I don't know. What do you got, Jeremy?
Who do you either want or believe will win out on those?
I would want the Saints, just because I just love Drew Brees, and I would love the Chiefs. But what I think is going to happen is it's going to be the Saints and the Chiefs
in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Okay. And who's going to win?
Really?
The Saints.
Okay. What do you got?
I second that. That's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's what's actually going to happen. I think the Saints should be able to beat the Rams. I'm not so sure about the other one.
Is the Who's got home field advantage in each one?
The Saints, they play in the Louisiana Dome, and then the Chiefs play at Arrowhead.
So yeah, New England If it was at Gillette Stadium, I'd pick the Patriots.
Oh, hands down.
You might be right. Yeah.
But the Chiefs haven't done much in a long time. It'd be refreshing to see them. They got a cool team.
Right.
Man, Andy Reid, there's a guy who's resurrected himself, huh?
And last weekend's victory at home was their first playoff victory since 1994 at home. So they broke a huge long streak there.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
I'm probably I would say, I gotta pick New Orleans though, because in that dome, wow, that's
right.
That's a tough place to be. So I'm probably picking the same thing, Saints and Chiefs.
Wow.
I mean,
that means if we all pick the same thing, it's not going to happen.
Although I'll tell you what, I mean, it's hard to pick against the Patriots. Period. In a story anywhere.
Right.
I would pick a quote upset of the Patriots over the Chiefs versus an upset of the Rams over the Saints. Yeah,
I would agree. I think the Patriots upsetting is more likely than the Rams upsetting the Saints. I think that's a given.
I agree.
More of a solid choice, I should say.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting question, and this goes with the Patriots again. So say win or lose, Tom Brady comes back. How long is Belichick under contract for?
I think he just does a 1 year every year.
Think he does? That's interesting.
No,
I'd like to know that.
No, I'm joking.
Wouldn't surprise me. He gets whatever the hell he wants in drafts. Like, I'll give you whatever you want.
Yep.
But Brady's 41, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's going to keep playing until he gets hurt or they. You know what I mean? He's an interesting guy, barring injury and just totally falling off the map. He's going to keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The Patriots are just, in terms of they're at the twilight of their quote dynasty, but is that twilight 1 more year, 2 more years, 3 more years, 4 more years? It's weird. Just an interesting dynamic. I mean, part of me in the Super Bowl, I would pick. Boy, that'd be a good Super Bowl. Where's it playing at? I mean, Saints and Chiefs. I mean, that'd be a good Super Bowl.
Atlanta. It's playing in Atlanta.
Had to give
the win there.
I mean, Saints are a dome team. Not that it means a whole lot, but I would say Saints would probably still have and their fans would travel really well.
Yeah.
I would have to pick Saints. There's a large part of me, I'll be honest with you guys, that doesn't give a rat's ass about any of this. But I'll still pick it
to a point. But I mean, yeah, whatever. I mean, the Super Bowl's a party.
Well, I am one of those guys where it's like all I really care about are my Packers, and the Packers aren't in it. I don't care, but at the same time,
yeah, I feel that to a certain extent too. But whatever. I mean, it's interesting. So I don't have anything else, and I think we're over our usual time even. So if you guys don't have anything else, I'm gonna go Pat Go it.
Go Pack Go. Well, I'm gonna have to find it for this podcast, but
well, you're good at that, Andy. You'll come up with something.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All righty, boys.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yep. Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.
Podcast.
Share.
I know, right?